Hello, and welcome into another edition of the JMac podcast, and this time another JMac snack. Although this one we have a lot to cover because there is a lot of new information surrounding COVID-19 that I want to bring to you. Questions like, do we still need to wear a mask with the vaccine coming? Will the vaccine be mandatory? Will you still be contagious after the vaccine? How will we know who has gotten the vaccine? This is a huge question that is going to bring all kinds of controversy. I just want to share that with you now. And how will the vaccine work for different ethnic groups? And then we'll wrap it up with, does dog ownership make you more susceptible to COVID-19? I'll give you a hint. The answer is yes. The reason why? We'll stick around. We'll talk about it. All right, so let's start off talking about where we're at with COVID-19. We are getting information now. We are watching the vaccine rollout in the UK. We are getting word that we're going to start seeing the vaccine rollout here in the United States for first responders, for medical care professionals, and that's very exciting. But we're being told that those of us who are everyday types, like myself, we're probably not going to see this vaccine until spring, maybe even a little bit later. So the question is, are we at the end of the tunnel? Can we take the masks off? Or do we still have to wear masks? Well, I think you know the answer to this one. The CDC says all Americans need to wear face masks to prevent the spread of coronavirus. The recommendation comes as hospitals across the nation fill up with sickened people by COVID-19. And the president-elect, as you know, was asked about whether or not the wearing of masks would be mandatory. He said no, but he is going to ask something of the American people.
On the first day I'm inaugurated to say I'm going to ask the public for 100 days to mask. Just 100 days.
Just 100 days. Well, let's be honest, it's not exactly just 100 days because we've just come off of 10 months of it. So it's 100 more days, but it does kind of give you this feeling like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? And a lot of people were worried that he was going to make people wear a mask. I think at some point during the campaign, he said he would mandate mask wearing. I don't know what's changed his mind at this point. I personally, from my own research, I don't think he has the constitutional authority to force people to wear a mask. I do believe that states have that authority, unless it's somehow restricted by their state laws or constitution. But at any rate, it looks like we're going to still be asked to wear a mask for at least the next 100 days. So get used to it, and please do it. You're going to save lives. You're going to help our economy get back faster. So please do it. So now we get to the vaccine. You know, for the vaccine to work, people have to take it. We've got to build up herd immunity. And it looks like the majority of Americans say they will take it, but there's a lot of people who still believe that this thing is a hoax. So then the question is, will getting the vaccine be mandatory? President-elect Biden talked about that as well.
While Mr. Biden said he would be willing to get a vaccine, he would not require it for all Americans.
I don't think it should be mandatory. I wouldn't demand to be mandatory, but I would do everything in my power. Just like I don't think masks have to be made mandatory nationwide.
That from the news conference that he gave, I think it was on Friday. So he doesn't think the vaccine needs to be mandatory, but he will encourage everybody to get it. And he says that if Dr. Fauci says it's good to go, then he will take it. But here's something that I want you to think about. Just because your country, your federal government doesn't make it mandatory, and let's say your state doesn't make it mandatory. I don't see that from states, but maybe in places like California, they're really getting blasted by this thing right now. Maybe you'll see it. That doesn't mean that it won't be mandatory by your job, right? I mean, if you work in a hospital, you're probably going to have to get it, required. If you work in a school, you might be required. You might have a business that requires you as an employee, to get this before you go back. And of course, that is going to open up all kinds of legal challenges and arguments. This rollout of the vaccine, I would love to think that it's going to be simple and easy. It's not, my friends. There's going to be all kinds of legal wrangling and controversy surrounding this thing. And guess what? They still don't know if you will be contagious after you get the vaccine. So it may prevent you from getting symptoms, but will it prevent you from being contagious? This from Business Insider. Pfizer's chairman says it's not clear whether people who are vaccinated can still spread COVID-19. In fact, they've never tested for it, so they don't know. This is Albert Bourla. He told NBC's Dateline, I think this is something that needs to be examined. We're not certain about that right now. And again, they haven't tested it out, so they don't know. So you could still be a spreader, an asymptomatic spreader. We just don't know at this point. And I think a lot of people are assuming when they hear the word vaccine, they're like, oh, I'll be immune and I won't be able to spread it anymore. Well, there's a couple of issues. They're not sure how long the immunity lasts, and they're not sure if you'll be able to spread it again. Now, here's the biggest question for me of the day. How will we know who has gotten the vaccine? I want you to think about this. How will we know? The CDC is planning to offer healthcare providers, this from ABC News, a template they can use to print buttons or stickers that would advertise that a person's been vaccinated. The idea is that the button would be handed out to patients after they receive their vaccination shots. Now, I see a replay here of the service animal or, the emotional support animals, where people found out, wait, I can take my dog into businesses that wouldn't typically let me if I just put a little vest on him and buy a certificate online. When in reality, you needed a prescription from a medical professional. But people, they just wanted, for selfish reasons, to have their dog with them. So they bought them online. Now, how many people out there do you think that don't want to wear a mask in public already, don't want to wear a mask in Costco or Walmart, which is where all the videos are being caught of people not wearing masks? What are you going to do as a business when somebody's wearing their button loud and proud that says they've been vaccinated? I don't think that there's any way that this is going to work. In fact, I think that you're going to have to say, vaccinated or not, you still need to wear a mask, especially based upon the idea that you haven't been able to know whether or not you can still be a spreader if you've been vaccinated. You're not going to be able to prove, short of some kind of tattoo, a permanent marking or something, to say that they've been vaccinated. You're not going to know that either. So to me, wow, the legal ramifications and gymnastics that are going to happen over the vaccine, and you combine that with people printing out buttons that they've made up themselves or purchased online saying that they were vaccinated, we are preparing for a very interesting... You think 2020 is done with us? 2021 is just getting started. So something to think about. Now, what about how the vaccine works for all ethnic groups? Well, it turns out that not every study has been able to accurately be included for all ethnic groups. In fact, the Pfizer research, they used, in the simplest terms, they used artificial intelligence and machine learning to examine the way that this mRNA vaccine should work. And it turns out the baseline that they used was for white trial participants. This could mean that people of Black or Asian ancestry could have a slightly increased risk of vaccine ineffectiveness. That according to the study's author, David Gifford. So we already know that the Hispanic community and the Black community is more skeptical about this vaccine, especially because of some of the things that the federal government has done in the past with research on African Americans without their knowledge. So we're not sure about that. So that's something else. And I've just got two more stories. These ones they're more on the interesting side. I already mentioned the first one. Does owning a pet make you more susceptible to COVID? Well, owning one type of animal does actually make you more susceptible to COVID. What do you think it is? I would have said cats. Because you know how I feel about cats. It's not cats.
At 6, a new study finds that dog owners have an increased risk of catching coronavirus. Researchers tracked more than 2,000 people in Spain during the country's lockdown back in the spring. And they found living with a dog increased a person's risk of getting COVID by 78%. It's not clear if dogs acted as the host of the virus or if dog owners came into contact with the virus somewhere else. But they say dog owners have to pay extra attention to hygiene. The full study is published in the journal Environmental Research.
Thank you. That from ABC 7. What they're saying is what they think. The hypothesis is that dog owners have a different type of lifestyle. They're out walking their dogs more. They're out talking to people more, popping into groomers, playing in the park, those types of things. So they don't think the dog, in fact, the dog is less likely to actually get and carry COVID than other animals. And in fact, as I suspected, cats can be more of a carrier. But for some reason, dog owners are more likely to catch the COVID. And then I'll just share this one just for laughs. This is in Ohio, a high school athletic association trying to figure out how to have their sports and still be protected from COVID. This is something every school district in the nation is going through. And so when it comes down to wrestling, think about wrestling and everything that happens with wrestling. Is wrestling something that you're going to allow during a pandemic that spreads like COVID? Well, the Ohio High School Athletic Association, according to WLWT5 in Cincinnati, they have come out with their guidelines for wrestling in an age of COVID. And they said, quote, student athletes are permitted to wrestle, but they must refrain from handshakes before and after the match. Oh, genius. Absolute genius. No handshakes. Everything else, fair game. Wow. Hey, my friends, I hope that gives you a good update on where we are at with the COVID-19 epidemic and the vaccines and the different questions out there. Mark my words. This button issue and who's been vaccinated is going to be a big deal. And so is the legal requirements if a business or a school or a hospital wants to require vaccinations. So we'll continue to watch for that. And of course, we'll cover the vaccine rollout as it happens. Hey, please take a minute and go into the description of this podcast. Click on the link to support our program. Become a one-time donor, or you can, for $5 a month or more, become a patron of this podcast. Help me bring this information to you every single day. I want to bring you more and more and more. But in order to do that, I've got to be able to stop doing my other side hustles so that I can just focus on this. And you can help me do that. So click on the link, become a patron, and there's some cool rewards at different levels when you come in. So please take a minute and do that. With that, more snacks on the way, and I hope you have a wonderful day.